Welcome to Hopkinton Works. I'm Elaine Lazarus, Hopkinton Town Manager. And here with me today are John Neese, Principal Assessor, and Christopher McWhite, Director of Municipal Inspections and Building Commissioner. John works in the Finance Department and with the Board of Assessors. And Christopher works in the Land Use Department. And we're going to talk about their professions, what they do for the town, and what they are currently working on. So welcome, John and Chris, to today's program.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
All right. Why don't we start by each of you telling me a bit about your professional background. John?
Sure. So thank you, Elaine, and thank you, HCAM, and hello to the audience that will be watching this program at some point. My professional background, I graduated from Boston College in 1972. I worked for a little while in real estate sales and listings, didn't really like that part of the business too much, so I transitioned over to appraisal, real estate appraisal. I worked as an appraiser for about 25 years, doing all sorts of valuations, commercial, industrial, residential, 40B projects, subdivisions, conservation restrictions, office buildings, apartment buildings, all kinds of properties. And then I transitioned over to assessing in 2009. I started with the town of Norfolk, a very nice community. I came to Hopkinton in 2015. Love being here. I have 3 different designations from the Assessors group, and I've also had the pleasure of being able to teach some courses and speak at some seminars and conferences. So that should be enough. Thank you.
And Chris, welcome. And tell us a bit about your background.
Well, my story really starts in the turn of the last century, if you will. I started working about 10 years in restaurants and hotels and got my degrees and all of that, but I realized I had what Oprah Winfrey once called your aha moment, and I realized I needed to make a change in my life. And I was turned on to an opportunity to be an inspector with the Indianapolis Housing Authority. And that was back in 1999. And when I went to Nan McKay and Associates training in Ohio, I came back and talked to my boss. I said, Kathy Steiner, where does all this come from? Where do all these rules come from? She said, they come from building codes. I said, building codes? What's that? Because when you grow up watching public television, you watch This Old House and Home Time, but they don't talk about codes necessarily, at least not at that time. And so that was where it all started for me. And now, 25 plus years later and 5 states later, I have found myself in a position as a department head, which is a position I actually did not seek it, but I was happy to take it because what I really want to be able to do is to have a great opportunity to set the tone for what building codes are really supposed to do, and also to establish a relationship with the community. And so to that end, I worked to earn a number of certifications to not show off or anything, but my certifications are to be able to offer a real answer to a real question for a homeowner or a business owner. So over those years, I've accumulated over 21 different certifications, and I've also taught courses on the existing building code through a private organization. And I'm on a couple of different boards and committees with the International Code Council, which actually writes the building codes. And as a matter of fact, this coming weekend, we're going to begin the process on doing the code updates and code hearings in Florida, and then later in October in Ohio, focusing right now on the international existing building code, as well as some other portions of the commercial building code. So I get a chance to see it from stem to stern, if you will.
Great. And how long have you been with the town of Hopkinton?
I just came on board in September of last year.
Okay, all right. So still learning
Yeah.
a little bit.
Nice to have you here.
I appreciate it.
And continuing on the professional aspect of your position, how does someone become a building commissioner or building inspector? What kind of training and certification is required?
Well, the state has its own requirements, and every state does, as they should. You know, for the minimum requirements, 3 years, 5 years experience of supervision of construction, which is basically swinging hammers or pulling pipe or laying wire, that sort of thing. There's also requirements for certifications. There's educational requirements, not only initial, but also continuing education. And depending on whether you are a local inspector or the inspector of buildings or a building commissioner, the number of hours you're required to maintain over a 3-year period will vary. For me, I'm required to have 45 hours every 3 years. But I believe that it's not just being able to understand the construction code, because that can be learned and taught. from my experience, the most successful building officials, the ones who have found the most fruitfulness out of it, are the ones that come to it with an insatiable level of curiosity, a desire to see a building better than it was when they left it in a reasonable, equitable, and judicious manner.
Very interesting. And so is that swinging hammers, as you described, is that a requirement of anyone who wants to pursue that field?
The interpretation of supervision of construction is wide and varied, and really up to the decision of the Board of Building Regulations and Standards, or the Building Official Certification Committee. They make that determination. I was fortunate. My pathway started in Indianapolis, as I mentioned, with the Section 8 program, doing inspections there. But when I moved to Georgia, I again continued that work in Atlanta. But I was living in Columbus, and a job opened up with the Columbus Consolidated Government. And I interviewed there for a housing code inspector, which is basically what Massachusetts would know as 105 CMR, which is when you have you're focusing on health and so forth. But my focus was what's called the property maintenance code. And it was a lot of fun doing that because it allowed me to easily slide into from Section 8 into existing property maintenance, and that's what allowed me to be able to come in to getting my 5 years of experience necessary.
Oh, interesting. Okay, thanks. And John, how does someone become an assessor?
Interesting question, and there are certainly some parallels to what Chris was talking about. So during my professional background, I sort of explained what my path to assessing was. There really isn't anything which is typical. Mine was quite atypical, actually. I started in Norfolk as a principal assessor, which is unusual. But that was because of my extensive background in valuation as an appraiser. Didn't know anything about the Mass General laws at that point and about assessing and mass appraisal, but learned that very quickly through a number of paths. But unfortunately for assessing, there is not a good apprentice or training program that's available. So my suggestions for someone who's interested in municipal government would be to Google the Massachusetts Association of Assessing Officers at maao.org, and they have a career center posting so someone can see what might be available in municipal government or specifically in assessing. And then they should also Google MMA, which is the Massachusetts Municipal Association. And on their website, they have a municipal marketplace, which also lists various job opportunities in all types of municipal government, but obviously including assessing as well. And you'd probably want to go to those sites every once in a while to see, because the postings sort of come and go as those positions get filled. Typically, though, someone who is interested in the field would start as what we might refer to as a data collector. So they would be in the field probably every day looking at single families, condominiums, vacant land, inspecting those properties, measuring them, taking photographs, going through the exterior, around the exterior and the interior, and learning about the quality of construction and noting the different characteristics and amenities and features of those properties, which all then goes on to what's referred to as a property record card. And then after a few years or a number of years working in the field like that, they could advance hopefully to a deputy assessor position and then eventually to a principal assessor position.
Okay, great. And one of the important things that assessors do is establish the value of property for tax purposes. And there are standards for those values. So how are those standards developed? Who approves them? How often are they changed? Where does that come from?
Sure. So we have, I always like to think that I have several supervisors. The residents are obviously one of them because we answer to them, but I work under the supervision of my CFO, the Chief Financial Officer in the Finance Department. Then I work under the Town Manager. I answer to the Select Board. And we have a Board of Assessors as well that we answer to and have certain statutory responsibilities in setting the tax rate. But the main players are the Mass General laws. So this textbook here, that's our guidebook, is laws relating to municipal finance and taxation. So we certainly look to that. And then we work under the Division of Local Services under the Department of Revenue, and they actually publish what are called certification standards. It's about a 75-page booklet which provides the assessors with the very minimum set of requirements to set fair and equitable cash values. And I'm not going to read through 74 pages, and I don't want to put anyone to sleep, but just give you some ideas. I mean, we deal with property assessment contracts with some of the different vendors we use. We have to go out and collect all of the real property data. As I've mentioned, we are constantly updating our tax maps. We have to look at the 3 different approaches to value, sales, cost, and income. There's statistical analysis we do. We have to be within 90 to 110% of a sale price in order to have the tax rate set. There's land valuation, there's multiple regression, there's personal property, there's state-owned land, farmland, and all types of things. So those are really the standards that we follow in addition to the Mass General laws. And I think that'll take us. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Sure.
Thank you. And Chris, there's a building code in Massachusetts. How is that developed? Who develops it? And how often is it changed?
So the building codes are actually published every year by the International Code Council. And they have offices, field offices in Washington, D.C., Chicago, Alabama, and so on. But what their purpose is to actually write the virgin building code, which is essentially the unamended code, before it's actually adopted by any state or any country. And I say that with intention because the codes are literally written with international intentions behind it. So you'll actually find the codes have been adopted in places where 2 or more countries in Africa, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Canada, and even portions, and of course every state in the United States has adopted some or all of the codes. Now, the codes are actually several books. There's over 9,000 pages of building code before there's any amendments to any of them. And so how they come to be in the state level is the Board of Building Regulations and Standards will look at the codes and they'll decide, okay, which ones are we going to continue to bring forward and update? And then, and when I say update, I mean they will amend them through a code promulgation process where there's a public comment period as well as. And the intention is to have all stakeholders to be able to speak to what amendments they would like to have done within the codes. Now, Massachusetts is unique to other states where the entirety of Chapter 1 of the code, which is all of the administrative stuff, is actually deleted in its entirety and is replaced with its own unique language. One of the most unique things about it that I like is what they call a 110 inspection. It's a 110, Section 110 of that is certain occupancies are to be inspected on a periodic basis. So every year, 2 years, or half-decade basis, different buildings are inspected to assure that life safety systems and means of egress and ingress are being maintained to a certain level. And the intention of that one is fundamentally all of the building codes, as well as their amendments, and all of the things that come into it, whether we're talking about accessibility or we're talking about new construction or maintaining an existing building, really comes down to one fundamental principle, and that's just to be a good neighbor. Anything that you do, you want to try to do it in such a way that it takes care of yourself and your neighbor next to you. So when we say life safety, it's not necessarily saying just exit signs and smoke detectors. It's really about making sure things like, if you have roof runoff, don't let the water run into your neighbor's yard. If you have a driveway, try to understand that it should be on your property and not theirs.
Okay, very interesting. There's a lot to that. So following up on that, what are some of the challenges that you face in your work?
I think the challenges that we face, and I say we because it's not unique to Massachusetts, it's actually nationwide, is qualified individuals who take pride in what they do. And a lot of that is based on the challenge that sometimes they've had an inspection from a building official in the past who hasn't had the ability to keep up with some of the challenges and changes that come, because they do come fast. And unless you are really interested in that kind of thing, it can happen and you won't even know it. Not necessarily because they aren't interested, but because sometimes the annals of communication aren't as robust as we would like them to be in all the cases. So sometimes things happen. And so what that means is for the person who's doing the actual construction work, will hear about something only because the inspector said something, and it's usually after they've already made the purchase. So it's an education. So the greatest challenge, directly to your question, is education, and doing it in a way that is going to honor and respect the experience of the contractor before me. And sometimes the contractor that I'm working with, or the homeowner, or the developer, has received information that may have not been entirely accurate, and so they'll rely on internet search engines to find the answer, only to find out that their search engine turned them to the wrong answer, and then we have to deliver the bad news. So what I try to do is to assure every person who comes to our counter has full information available. So one of the first things I did when I came to town was to update and to make more robust the Inspectional Services webpage. And on that webpage, we have a variety and a plethora of information. Is this your first time here? Not sure how to get started? What do you need to submit with an application? If any person who's ever had a child may have read the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. So I have created a whole series of PDFs that says what to expect when we're inspecting. So we're talking about building, swimming pools, wiring. We have a list of what to expect in what order and what inspection should be done, in addition to hyperlinks to all the building codes and also to the amendments of them. And so the real challenge that we have is just making sure that people have a readily accessible means to understand what they have before them when it comes to building something, because nobody likes surprises, and nobody wants to be shocked by, I didn't know I needed to do that. So our goal is to make sure that everybody has information up front so they can plan ahead.
And that's on the town website,
It certainly is.
hopkinton.org. That's great. It's good to have that available. And John, what kind of challenges are you facing in your work?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So, we think that continuing education, both for us as professionals as well as for the residents, and public relations and outreach to the residents is extremely important. So, one of the challenges is to make sure that the residents understand that property values can change every year. They can go up in value, they can go down in value. Just briefly, some of the reasons for that, obviously, if someone does new construction or takes out a permit, makes improvements, does renovations, puts an addition on the property, then there are going to be changes to the market value. On the other hand, there can be a decrease in value if there's fire damage to a property or a property is demolished for new construction or open space. But the other important issue is that value changes as well based on not those specific items, but based on what's happening in the market in general. So people will often say, well, I haven't made any improvements to my property in 20 years, or I haven't made any changes, haven't put on an addition, haven't put on a new garage or finished the basement. But if the market is showing that property values in a community are increasing over time, then their property is going to increase in value as well to reflect those market changes. So, again, one of the challenges, I think, is to make sure residents read and understand some of the public relations articles that we have on the website. The other, I think, is always the volume of work that we face, over the course of the year. So in Hopkinton, we have about 7,200 properties, residential, commercial, industrial, open space, chapter land, personal property. And we deal with so many different issues like abatements and exemptions and chapter land and utility values and permits. Thank you to Land Use for providing those lists every month so we see what permits are approved, and we can go out and inspect them for the differences. We deal with new construction every year. Motor vehicle applications is a big issue, personal property values, sales verifications and inspections, map changes whenever someone splits a lot or there's a new subdivision. So all those items, I mean, we love to deal with all those different facets of assessing, but it does present a challenge every year for the limited staff, that every community has and the amount of work that we need to do.
So I'm hearing from both of you, you're touching the building, the assessing, it's related. How do your departments coordinate those activities? How does that happen?
A lot of times it starts with somebody who has a dream, and they say, I would like to do this to my building, or I'd like to do this to my land. And they say, where do I get started? So of course they would start with planning or with and all that, but they would end up with assessing as well, because they want to find out what the property has been assessed as. And I really appreciate that, the Assessor's database, because it offers a wealth of information for us. Especially it helps to sometimes reveal things that people just didn't know. So they may look at the Assessor's database and look at the property card and say, well, I have a 4-bedroom, but they're looking around, they only see 3 in their house. And they're like, what happened there? And so many people will come to us and ask, can you please settle the matter? And so the short answer is, when it comes to the actual legal use of a building, that rests with the building department, inspectional services, but the assessed use rests with the assessor's office. And I like to paint the picture this way, where somebody has purchased a passenger van and it has a freezer in the back and some stickers on the side, and they say, oh, I can sell ice cream. And so they go to the RMV and they register it, and they congratulate them on their passenger van. They say, no, it's an ice cream truck. And they say, no, you may be using it as an ice cream truck, but it's only legally a passenger van. So the legal use of it actually rests with us. And when we reveal those issues, we want to work with as a partnership with the homeowner, with the business owner, to make sure that we're all on the same page, so that they are properly assessed and so that they actually know what they actually own for all the reasons.
Yeah, I think it's that sharing of information, that puts us together in the same place a lot of different times. In fact, just today I wrote to land use for an electronic copy of building plans for new construction that's going up on Hayden Row. So we depend on them for a lot of things. We certainly go out in the field and we look at all the permits and the new construction, but it sort of flows from them to begin with. And our website, our Patriot Camera database, is certainly available to them and all the other town departments. And we also have a very nice near map aerial imagery, which I don't know if they do use it, but there is access to that as well. So,
great. And of course, both of you are available at Town Hall and by phone for people to speak with at any time.
Absolutely.
Ask questions.
Absolutely.
And we like it when people call with questions.
Yes.
Yeah, we like that, and we do get several inquiries, every day about one issue or another, and we're always happy to to help people and spend some time with them so they can understand what the issue is. So
Exactly. We really prefer that you ask the question, because we want to dispel any misconceptions up front. Again, nobody wants a surprise.
Right. And your review also touches on zoning, so people sometimes have zoning questions, and they can get those answers by calling the land use department as well.
Absolutely. And of course, zoning is what gives you permissions to build what you want to build. The building code essentially tells you how to make it safe.
I have a couple of other things
Okay,
I'd like
all
to
right.
share with you if you don't mind, but we are in the process of finishing a new brochure, which is going to be called Know Your Taxes, and that will be up on the website soon to just sort of give people a better understanding of how we go about the whole process of setting the taxes. I just want to remind them about the Senior Solutions Guidebook that we have on the website, which lists all of the different exemptions that are available. And I just want to take a minute to talk about tax assistance, if I could. Thank the generosity of the residents when they send in some money for the tax relief fund. Thank the leadership of the town manager and the select board. And because of that, we're able to give out several exemptions every year. Last year, there were several dozen, actually, exemptions for seniors and veterans. In the order of some $60,000 in terms of tax relief. We also had the fairly new means-tested circuit breaker exemption, and all of this information is on our website. And we should also mention the Senior Work-Off Program, the Tax Relief Fund, and we do have a new home rule petition spearheaded by the Select Board to exempt seniors that qualify from the cost of new school construction. So we'll have that application out, fairly soon on the website. So.
Excellent.
If I can tag off of that, we actually have somebody in our department right now who avails himself to the senior program for the taxes. So we really appreciate that. But very briefly, 30 seconds, I think, the month of May is Building Safety Month. And so we want to encourage every person who has a home or a business to just kind of look around and see what they actually have, and to see, is there something here that they're not sure is safe, or they hear a smoke alarm making a noise. It's probably making a noise for a reason. And also to understand that while the energy code has a lot of people very nervous for a lot of reasons, don't borrow trouble. It's not as complex as it actually looks like. When you have a conversation with us, our entire focus is to make the whole process of owning a business or a building easy to understand, to demystify what the home actually needs, so that you understand what you actually have to do as opposed to what you assume you have to do. We don't want anybody to be afraid to have a conversation with us about any of those kinds of things. So again, the month of May is Building Safety Month, and we look forward to having any person come in with any of their questions, especially if they have questions about what do I need to do if I want to finish a basement, or if I want to move into this tenant space and ply a trade.
Excellent. Great information. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for watching Hopkinton Works. Thank you very much for joining us.